I must admit though, it's my coffee cup is full of water.
Ah, well, I like the disguise.
So I wanted to get into character for the show, but I've already had a lot of coffee today. So,
Mate, I'm impressed, and I'm very flattered by that. Well done.
awesome.
Yeah, I've actually I did an interview yesterday with Travis Bell. He's the bucket list guy, and I said to him the last few interviews have been in a coffee cup, but it's actually tea. So I think I'm losing my toughness as I get older. I can't handle lots of caffeine anymore.
I feel exactly the same. You know, couple of cups, and the rest of the afternoon, a little bit of a scatterbrain, or
Exactly.
or just talk 100 miles an hour.
Exactly. It's called getting old, mate, I think.
Oh, great. Thanks.
I can tell you all about it. Mate, first of all, thanks for doing this. I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to your knowledge and expertise in this area. It's interesting to see this sort of content coming up a lot, and obviously through you coming up a lot on social media and specifically on Facebook. And every time I notice something that you put up, it's a scroll stopper. And I'm sure you know what I mean by that. A lot of times people are just scrolling through Facebook, and whenever I see your name come up, and I'm not just saying this, it's a scroll stopper. And it makes me go, oh, what's he up to today? What link has he put up? What question is he throwing out to people? So yeah, it's really good to see that. Is there a strategy or a method to that?
Oh, look, interestingly, I was speaking to a client a little while back, and he's at the beginning of his journey and he's really just starting out. And I was saying that, look, there's no real deliberate strategy behind what I do on a daily basis. However, I'm also drawing on, almost 20 years of experience of being in business and doing these sorts of things.
Yeah.
So there's no real deliberate, step one, step two, step three thing, but also can't say, from the word go, if people are just starting out, that they can't have a strategy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And, I know myself, and I still am on a daily basis, just making mistakes, throwing something up against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if you're doing it from a place of passion, and if you're doing it from a place of wanting to serve, then it really doesn't matter what you might consider a mistake or what works or what doesn't, because you're going to continue moving forward anyway.
Exactly.
So what's the big deal if something doesn't work?
I'm glad you said that too, because I like to live my life like that. And, I've had some, the last few weeks, I've been really faced with that, in a full-time role that I lasted a day and a half in. I realized that wasn't going to work for me. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror at the end of each day and know that I was doing what I think was right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm glad you bring that up, mate. Rather than us sort of just ramble along, it'd be good to stick to some sort of structure. When I'm
in your hands.
Careful. I sent you through some questions a little while ago. Are you okay if we just sort of stick to some structure along that?
Yeah, sure.
No worries.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely in your hands. If you want to go off on a tangent, I'll be there with you every step of the way.
Yeah, cool. I like to keep these pretty raw and unedited and real. But what I found, I put Travs up today on Facebook, and there was a little bit of colourful words, and Facebook didn't like it very much.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So you don't come across to me as a potty mouth anyway. But don't say fuck or shit.
Yeah, it's not often that you'll hear that come out of my mouth, and if you do, then it's going to be, then you'll realize exactly why. Depending on the point I'm trying to make.
It's passion, right? It's passionate swearing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. All right, mate. Look, tell a little bit about the thousands and thousands of viewers that will be watching this. Millions is up to. It's up to millions.
Awesome.
It's just my mum, actually.
Hi, Mum.
Tell us all a little bit about the last, as you touched on before, a little bit about the last 20 years and where you are now and where you're headed.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I'm going to keep it, in the realm of, in the service professions and helping people, and probably as it relates to neuroscience, because there's so many different directions we could go in here,
Yeah.
of course. So I probably started, really being interested in the brain in the late 90s, and it really came about in response to the type of lifestyle that I was having at the time. I was in a place where things weren't amazing. I was partying a lot, and really wanting to, first of all, recover from partying faster, so I could function on a day-to-day basis. So it really wasn't in a great place, but that's probably where it really began, this fascination and interest in the brain and what's going on in the brain in different states as we move about our life, in different mental states, in different emotional states, as we move about and try and figure out this thing called life. And it was around that time that I threw myself into a personal training business. So I got right into the health and fitness industry because I had a passion for health and fitness, and I pretty much had an instant business as a contractor. And so while the psychology and the neuroscience was really more of an interest of mine, a bit of a hobby on the side, I used to throw quite a bit of how our brain operates, how our mind works into my sessions to help transform, or help my clients transform to make, in this case, some sort of health and fitness change. Because of course we know, like you can have the best health and fitness plan ever. If you don't change your mindset around the way you are doing things, then the program's pretty much irrelevant.
Exactly.
So that happened. It grabbed my attention for a number of years, and I was really passionate about the health and fitness industry. But it wasn't really the one thing. It grabbed my attention, but it wasn't the lifetime project at that stage.
Let me jump in there, because my background is fitness as well, and it's funny that a lot of these interviews I do with people that are on these remarkable journeys have all sort of started somewhere in the fitness industry, which is really interesting. Tell me about, you said you were, did you say you were contracted, or
yep.
So
contractor at a gym, typical sort of gym situation. Grew up in Perth, so it was pay rent to the gym. You've got access to all of these leads, and you just build up your business.
Got it.
And so, I was very quickly up at the 30, 40, 50 half-hour sessions a week kind of mark. So successful business very quickly. Loved my clients. Was horrible at selling, but because I had a passion for helping people, it really, the service sold itself in that respect.
Why do you say you were horrible at selling?
Because all of the sales training and all of the scripts and all of the nonsense that they give you, it was just like I couldn't follow it, and when I tried to follow it, it never worked. Because it was scripted. You can tell when someone's fake, following a process. It's fake. Exactly. So really just connecting with this idea of really wanting to help people. I think, being authentically me, like passionate about health and fitness, passionate about helping other people, and it all just came together really quite nicely. So,
okay. And what happened? Was there a moment where you said, okay, fitness, I'm done with, I want to go down this journey into psychology and human behavior and so on and so on?
Not really. It's really been an evolution. I mean, I started throwing some of the psychology into the mix with the personal training, but from there, it still really wasn't the kind of life that I wanted. So I packed up. I was about 27, 28. I packed up my business. I moved to London. Didn't really know anyone. Complete fresh start. Started again in health and fitness industry, because I thought, well, this is what I love doing. I'm going to need some flexibility. I'm going to need cash flow to figure out, there's something more out there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I want to figure it out.
So why'd you go to London?
Doing that. Um, I really wanted a fresh start. I wanted a clean slate. I didn't want to be sort of, I guess, stuck or trapped in the type of life that I was leading, where I had a great business, had amazing clients, but it still wasn't the environment that I wanted. You know, you've been to Perth?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah. So lovely place, but very
Does that say it all? Have you been to Perth? That's the answer.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I loved growing up in Perth, but it's an amazing place. It's also very shut off from the world, and I wanted to experience more than just this little bubble, you know. So yeah, moved to London.
Single guy.
Started the business again. Single. Started business. Got into a really good, probably one of my first really healthy type of relationships, and had a really good lifestyle. And then it sort of evolved from there into then delivering professional development training to personal trainers and people in the health fitness industry. So I got on the speaking circuit.
How did that happen?
Delivering workshops.
Was that a job, or was that a business that you set up?
So yeah, business I set up. You know, I started getting a lot more into psychology and a lot more into the personal development stuff. So I started attending a lot of seminars in the health and fitness industry, and also, you know, general sort of personal development stuff. And I thought, you know, I can do this. I can be a speaker. I can deliver these workshops. I think I'd be all right at it. So set my first one up to deliver to people in the health and fitness industry.
Still in London?
Still in London, yeah. Had my first, it was a 2-day program.
2 days? Well, you don't muck around, do you?
2 days. Never done this thing before, right?
Let's just do 2 days.
Let's just do 2 full days. I thought
make it a week.
Quite a technical workshop. So, you know, I thought the most amount of people I could probably handle was about 12 in this thing.
You got it.
So I got 12 people in this thing. Couldn't sleep the night before. Was completely shitting myself for like 3 days beforehand. And
where'd those 12 people come from?
I think they were all, at that point, they were all from, you know, within London. So I didn't have people traveling outside of London at that stage.
Yeah, okay. See, mine was my mum and her friends.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably, you know, it was one of those times when I just stepped out and went, I'm doing this. You know, I got the program accredited. It took, I think, 3 months to get this program professionally accredited by the governing body. So like I'd already committed to this thing for probably 6 months beforehand, prior to even delivering a workshop ever.
Before you'd even done the presentation, you had got it all registered and wow.
Talk about, you know, fire, ready, aim.
That's right. The Donald Trump approach.
Yeah, right. And, you know, I thought I did okay. Was really nervous throughout the entire first day. The second day went a little bit better, but at the end of it, I got all these comments about, you know, that was the best thing ever, and this workshop was amazing, and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, so I didn't completely suck.
Yeah.
Let's do another one.
Yeah.
And I think within an 18-month period from that first one, I ended up delivering, I think it was around 100 workshops.
Wow.
In 18 months. All around the UK, Australia. I even, you know, got some invitations out to places like Doha, Qatar.
Yeah.
And so that was great. I left the one-on-one personal training stuff behind. And at the same time that I was delivering all these workshops, I started to get more into attending these workshops. I went to this one particular conversational hypnosis mastery in LA. It was my first like really big experience of attending one of these things. It was a 10-day long training, and I was just blown away at the, not only the content but the overall experience. And I thought, right, I definitely want to get into more of this sort of stuff. At that stage, I didn't really know exactly what the content area was going to be. but I'm traveling around the world. I've now got a location-free business and I'm attending these things and I'm delivering stuff. I started delivering more workshops on influence and how to deliver your own workshops and getting more into the business side of things as well.
Right.
But at this stage, again, I still hadn't really fell in love with the neuroscience and the neuropsychology. And I thought, there's something I really want to figure out, this lifetime project. And I just started playing around with a few things, started doing a bit of success coaching, a bit of coaching in business, and really just sort of threw myself into a few different areas. And eventually it kind of emerged that neuroscience and coaching was the thing. And
why?
There wasn't...
Why did that come out of it?
For a number of different reasons. I love helping people, so that's the coaching element. The neuroscience stuff, at that point, I'd never really had anything that grabbed me, fully grabbed my attention and that really challenged me to the extent that I think I needed it to keep me interested and in the long game. The most I'd ever stuck to something is probably about 3 years before changing it in some way. And so I needed something that was really going to be the lifetime project, something perhaps that I'd never be able to really figure out. And, well, why not the brain, right? The most complex object in the universe.
100%.
I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to keep me going for a while. So,
but was it also that, like, as you say, and my understanding is that we know very, very, very little about the brain. But the journey that you had already gone on after personal training was in some way connected to that. Would that be fair in saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in some way, even from at a very early age, I started teaching martial arts. I had my own martial arts class when I was about 13, and this whole idea of teaching and training and coaching and the psychology of helping people make the changes that they wanted to make, it was really, looking back, it's not surprising at all that neuroscience came out on top as the content area. And I think that if we're talking about this, the secrets of the brain, so to speak, I think that while we know very little about everything to do with the brain, we still know so much and can be really confident with what we know. And I think a lot of that started before the fMRI stuff in the 90s with psychology. I mean, we're also drawing on 50 to 100 years of psychological research
plus,
that neuroscience is neuroscience is really just sort of the next stage that's adding on to all of the things that we already really know.
Yeah.
And so it brings a couple of things for me. It brings, first of all, confirmation to some things that we were pretty confident that we knew from psychological research from 50, 100 plus years. So we can now say definitively, well, we know what's happening and we know these are the reasons why, because we can now explain what's going on because of the neuroscience. So it confirms a lot of things. It also brings a lot of other things into question. Well, we kind of had this idea of what was going on, with human behavior and mindset and psychology. And then we're looking at the neuroscience, well, it's kind of bringing a couple of these other things into question. So it really is, it's really bringing a lot more of a sophisticated, explanatory approach to a lot of the stuff that we already kind of knew or thought we had a really good idea of.
Yeah, got it.
And of course, also being really, an advocate for evidence-based practice. The neuroscience fits perfectly into that because we can draw on the evidence to apply in our practice, and we can use that evidence with confidence, knowing that, well, we know that this stuff works.
Okay, mate, can I jump in and ask a question? Because
Please.
I think there'll be a lot of people out there, and me included, that will see the title of this, which will somehow be related to neuroscience and go, what is neuroscience? Can you give us speak to me like I'm 5 years old, which is give me the 5-year-old version of what is neuroscience.
Well, really, it's a study of the nervous system. Which we can't put it any more plainly and
Yeah,
simply than
exactly.
that. I think how it applies in, with respect to what I'm doing, and for the people that are watching this or listening to this, it's really like my area of study is applied neuroscience. So it's about taking the theories and taking the research and then making it practical. And then that's why I brought neuroscience and coaching together, because it's like, well, the way that I'm applying it is in respect to change work, in regards to helping people make some sort of change or make some sort of transformation, basically get the life that they want to have. And so I'm drawing a lot on what we know about brain science, what we know about the nervous system, but also all the other related things, right? The endocrine system, how hormones work, um, performance, sleep, habits, achievement, our psychology, drawing on all of these things to help make some kind of change in our life so that we can have the type of life that we want. So that's kind of, the bridge that I'm
Yeah,
creating between the theory and the practice.
I like it.
Um,
And thanks for simplifying it too. That makes a lot of sense. And I think because I'm interested, I would suggest that other people are as well. One of my big areas that I often think about is, why do humans do what we do? Why do people do what they do? And why are some people seem to be super successful in whatever that is, and others always seem to be snowballing the other way?
Yep.
Is there a general answer to that in regards to your work?
Well, I can give you my general answer, which kind of ties
Please.
back into, why neuroscience, why this particular area. Basically, it's because it really comes down to being able to use and work with your neurology. Like a really simple way of saying that is, I teach people how to use their brain. I don't know, that might sound a little bit funny to some people. Why, I use my brain all of the time.
Yeah, right.
And I don't mean it in a smart ass kind of way, like I'm going to teach how to use your brain. The thing is that we're operating with million-year-old hardware. We live in an environment that really our brain has evolved to a stage in an environment that doesn't exist anymore. Our modern day lifestyle is completely different from the environment that our brain has evolved to survive in.
Exactly.
And so we're really operating with this million-year-old hardware, and I think without updating essentially the user manual on how to use that thing, then we're really going to just be subject to the environment and triggers and cues, other people's agendas, manipulation, and because the brain loves to conserve energy, it loves forming these patterns and habits and routines, we can so easily just fall into a way of being that isn't really conducive to living the type of life that we want. Do you want an example?
Yes, please.
So
I've got a few, but I want to hear yours first.
awesome. So one of the areas that I spend a lot of time developing training in is around emotions, in particular emotion regulation. So I did my postgrad research on how the way we process emotions, and we'll call that emotional coping style, how we process emotions impacts on our ability to overcome obstacles and challenges. And what I found was that even with people, because I took a group of coaches, so even with people that are trained in this area, there are really distinct differences between people that process emotions in an acceptance style and those that process in an avoidance style. So if you process your emotions in a way that you want to avoid negative feelings and thoughts and memories and bodily sensations, whenever those feelings and emotions are associated with a particular situation, an event, or a task, you'll avoid those emotions, which means that you'll also avoid the task because you don't want to experience the things that are going to trigger off the negative feelings and emotions.
Is that just the fight or flight response? Is that essentially what we're talking about there?
It does. So the situation will absolutely trigger off a bottom-up response. A simplistic way of putting it is, it can trigger off a threat response, which can be an automatic reaction. But it can also, be a trigger for other things. Like, for example, let's say you've got an ex-partner and you're still all involved in the same social circles, and they're at an event. And you know that if you go to that event, you might experience hurt or jealousy if you see that ex-partner with somebody new.
Yeah.
Someone with an avoidant coping style is potentially going to avoid the event. They're going to say, well, I don't want to experience that jealousy and that hurt, and so I just won't go to the event. So that's avoiding that particular situation. Right? That's what we'd call situation selection. So they're choosing not to go to that situation, and so they don't want to trigger off those feelings. Now, and that's not to say that that's a problem. It becomes a problem when, let's say that there's an opportunity at that event that they really want to take advantage of. Let's say it's a work event and they've got potential for advancement in their career, and they're going to avoid that because they don't want to experience those feelings of jealousy and hurt. So that's really having this avoidant coping style. So it's really avoiding feeling a certain way because of a certain situation is going to trigger off the stuff that you just don't want to experience.
Got it. Do you think, though, that there becomes, like, I've got an example that I always use, and I hope it comes across. We went to Dreamworld or one of those places, and I was mid-20s, let's say, 150 years ago, and we're waiting in the line. And it was taking forever. It was taking 45 minutes for this thing. And I got to a point where I thought the pain of being in this line is actually more than the pleasure I'm going to have on that ride, right? And ever since then, I've always thought about situations like the one you just used as the example of the pain versus the pleasure. So the pain of going to that event and seeing my ex, is that going to be more than the pleasure of potentially getting a raise or a promotion or whatever? And if the pleasure is more, then I'm still going to go.
Yep.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it's certainly a way of weighing it up. I would suggest that in life, to have the types of experiences that you want, you're going to experience pain along the way. The interesting thing is that those with an acceptance style that, well, look, I'm going to experience the jealousy, I'm going to experience the hurt. How can I, there are different strategies, different emotion regulation strategies. How can I reinterpret this situation to mean something different? And those that have an acceptance style and can reinterpret that situation differently, funnily enough, don't experience the negative affect as much as those that avoid it.
Surprise.
Because at some point, surprise, surprise. So another way of looking at it would be, well, what else could I be paying attention to when I'm in this line, lining up for this particular roller coaster? Or was it a roller coaster?
I can't remember. I think it was a teacup.
The teacup. Oh man, you can't miss out on the teacup.
I did a teacup.
So it's like, well, man, I know I'm going to experience something really rewarding on the teacup ride, of course. While I'm in the line, what else could I pay attention to, or how else could I reinterpret this situation so that not only will I be in line to experience the joy I'm going to get from the teacup ride, but I can have a different affective experience while I'm in the line instead of feeling shitty that I'm in this long line.
Got it. So with that in mind, and this goes through my head, with that in mind, everything is just what we make it mean.
Absolutely. This
conversation today could mean to you 180 degrees different to what it means to me, right? Yeah, that's really cool. What about, don't mind saying, I'm very introverted in big groups. I really struggle in big groups. And my making it mean stuff is just going off everywhere. So like that X example, I just won't go. And I don't want my head telling me millions of different things. So I just say, look, I just won't go to that. So what you're saying is, and I'm obviously not the only introvert on the planet, I think. They could look at that whole situation differently.
Yeah. Yep. And it may not be as simple as just reinterpreting the situation differently. Like I had a client not too long ago, a similar kind of situation. And he described it as social anxiety, right? So this is really quite an extreme bottom-up reactive thing that even thinking about going to the event has these feelings of, oh shit, however, he wanted to go to the event for various different reasons. And so it may not be as simple as reinterpreting that event. There are definitely other strategies that need to be incorporated. But it's certainly a way of creating a different meaning of that situation in some way, whether it's cognitively through top-down processes, whether it's retraining your bottom-up reactivity to the situation, whether it's some sort of exposure therapy to the situation. So, you're not having these amygdala reactions where the amygdala is hijacking your prefrontal cortex and taking over your ability to think and reason and even enjoy yourself. So there's different strategies, but I think it really just depends on, first of all, being aware of the situations that you'd rather feel something different, and then employing some kind of strategy to make those changes. I mean, if you never want to go to these events and you'd rather just sit at home and there aren't any opportunities there and it's not stopping you from getting the life that you want, then why would you choose to change it just so you could go there just because?
Well, I'll answer that, right? Because this is what goes through my head, and I'm being selfish now, making this about me. I hope that's all right.
Quite okay. Quite okay.
So my response to what you just said was, it's an issue because I'm letting it control me. I'm allowing that to control me. And you're right. I can still get by and have a life that's fulfilling and everything else. But I'm not going to that event. Why? Because of the internal voice.
Yeah. Well, now it's a problem. I mean, it's and this is coaching, right? If it's a problem for you, it's a problem for you. My opinion on whether that's a problem or not is completely irrelevant. If you say it's a problem because of, and I'd rather have it resolved, then that's a problem. That's something you can choose to work on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, mate. So when a typical person, I'll start again. When someone comes to you for a bit of advice, what would be the typical thing they would have an issue with, or are they coming to you for advice for?
It varies. I'd probably get asked for business advice more than anything else. Yeah.
How can I write Facebook posts as good as you?
It's all sort of, I mean, yeah, some of the questions are pretty crazy. Like, so how can I get clients? Oh, well, all right.
Yeah. Bit more talk.
I'll just wrap that up into a nice little, 7-word sentence and it's going to solve everything.
Exactly.
It varies, everything from something to do with business, even if it relates to something to do with how they're thinking about their business. I mean, we're not short on strategies. The strategies are easy to come by and they're easy to do. It's a lot of the time, what's holding me back from doing the things I know I need to do? And that's where the neuroscience plays a really big role. Again, just drawing on my research, well, we know that people with an avoidant coping style are really affected by their affective experience. They're really affected by their positive and negative affect as it relates to trying to overcome obstacles and challenges. People that have an avoidant coping style experience more negative affect. It actually takes a lot of positive affect for them to get motivated and overcome obstacles and challenges. And so, well, you can have the best strategy, and it's back to the health and fitness thing, right? You can have the best, Facebook marketing strategy in the world. Why aren't you doing it? What's holding you back? Why are you only, you do it once, you get knocked back or you don't get a response. How come you're not doing it again an hour later or 5 hours later? It's because you've made the situation mean something that's preventing you from moving forward. Because if we didn't have that, everyone would be doing Facebook marketing. Exactly. Everyone would have successful businesses, and everyone would be winning.
100%. I always remember back in the gym days, and people would ask, what do I need to do? What's the best advice? And I would always say to them, you already know what to do. Everyone knows, get off your ass, stop eating shit. It's really simple, right? The trick is that we're just not doing it. And like you just said, otherwise everyone would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. But to follow on from that, is this particular area as simple as that? Do we already know what to do? We're just not doing it?
I think so. I mean, it really depends on, like if we were to get specific, and talk about, well, let's contextualize this. Let's talk about something to do with online marketing as an example. Do you need to write articles? Let's say, do you need to write articles, shoot videos? Do you need to reach out and connect with people? What are all the things that you know that you need to be doing to build your business, right? I'm sure we could come up with a list of 10 or 20 things.
Exactly.
We can go into any business. I could go into any business and have a look at, well, over the last 4 weeks, how many of all of those things, I don't care if it's like one article and 3 videos or 3 articles and 1 video, how many of all of those activities have you done in the last month? And, I can see the people that aren't making a success out of it because, and not to try and turn this into a business conversation, but I think it's a good example that, well, they've only done 6 things. Well, do you really think in this overcrowded marketplace where we really need to get someone's attention that 6 things is really going to work?
Mm.
What about the last month? Oh, it was 3. What about the month before that? 5. So 5 and 3 and 6. Or took a holiday and didn't do anything. I'm like, okay, great. Well, why not? Well, I put a Facebook post out there and
didn't work.
I got 1 like and I put my heart and soul into it and spent 3 hours writing this thing and I got 1 like and that was it. Okay, so you're going to give up now? And my question is, well, what's the reason behind that? And often I find that it's because the way that they feel after doing the thing, the task, is now associated to that task, and they don't want to feel that way again. So they'll avoid doing the task until they've built up enough motivation to do it again, maybe 3 weeks from now.
Can you say that again? When after they've done the task?
So let's just say, let's just say right now, I put a post on Facebook. I've spent, I don't know what your sort of experiences are with writing more sort of academic stuff. I saw somewhere recently you're doing your master's at the moment.
Yeah, I'm in my final year. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
it doesn't mean I'm any good, by the way. But I'm still there.
Well, that to write 500 words in even more towards the academic end can sometimes take hours. If you want to include reading all the research, days, right? So let's say I've spent the last 3 days. I want to write an article on insight, and I spent the last 3 days, reading all the papers, constructing a framework with which to be able to, teach this thing so it's something practical and people can use. I spend 3 hours writing the thing up. I put it out on Facebook, put all this energy into it. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. And I get 1 like. Now, if I was to think about that situation in the future, the way that the brain connects things is that I've connected up the experience of writing that thing, putting it out there on Facebook, that 1 like, and the experience of feeling, down or disappointed. I've linked them up. In the future, when I think about doing that thing again, writing the article, writing another article again, what's the thing it's going to trigger off? I know when I did this, this is going through the head. When I did that last time, I put all this energy and effort into it and I didn't get anything out of it. Why would you do it?
Exactly. It makes sense. So, and it's the same with anything. And we go back to the gym, right? You can do a month of training, and I hate scales. I think the best thing about scales is if you own some scales, people watching this, pick them up with both hands and whack yourself across the face with them. That's the best thing to do with scales. But in any case, people will do a month of training, jump on the scales and say, oh, I've only lost a kilo. This is, you know, you're a bad trainer, you're this or you're that, and play the blame game. And I've done that, like you said, with other areas of stuff. And what I've come to realize is, and this is what I try to teach people, is forget the finish line. Forget the after photo, you know. Get motivated by the journey. Get motivated by that 3 hour, 500 words that you did. You know, doing this interview for me is the good bit. I don't care if only my mum watches it. I mean, for your sake, I hope lots of people watch it, and I'm sure they will. But yeah, I'm motivated by the journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And that way, regardless of getting 1 like or 500 likes or 1,000 million, you're going to do it tomorrow again. Yeah. Because I enjoyed the journey.
Yep. One of the it's funny actually. I was at a gym a couple of hours ago, and one of the guys saying, "Well, how much do you work in a day?" And I'm like, "Well, you probably have to define work." You know? I said, "I've got an interview this afternoon. I've got another couple of client calls and things like that." It's like, if we define work as something that we'd rather not do, then I barely work at all.
I don't work, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but
well
I think
said.
Just going back to the journey thing, one of the domains of this model that I've constructed called neurotransformative modeling is directing the self and solving problems. And one of the things that I focus on is being values driven, not goal fixated, right? So you're not focused on, oh, well, I've got to get 10 clients in the next 3 months, or I've got to get the 6 or 7 figure business by 2 years from now, whatever else it is, because by really fixating on something like that, you're cutting off all other possibilities on that journey towards that thing. And so and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with setting goals, but I'm saying if we change our focus from being more goal fixated to more values driven. Let me give you an example. So I value lifetime learning. I also value teaching and helping other people. So if I go about my life valuing learning and valuing teaching, I'm automatically setting up my brain to look for all the ways that I can be learning and teaching. And isn't that a much better thing than saying, well, you know, I'm going to read 1 book a week for the next year. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but if that's the only thing that you focus on, that's the only thing that you're going to get out of it, rather than saying, well, I value lifetime learning. I'm constantly looking for ways to learn and to improve, and then also to teach and to train and to help other people. So it's just part of how I am, rather than saying, I've got to have this one thing by this particular point in time.
And it's so true, right? Like that was always my issue with people that said they're going on a diet. I said, unless that diet goes for the next 85 years, don't worry about a diet. Why? Because at some point you're going to finish, and then you're going to go back to, like you said, you haven't actually changed anything. I'm not a big fan of finish lines for that reason. You know, it needs to be just part of that cyclical journey. Yeah,
I think just drawing on the neuroscience for a moment. You know, if you change to something like if our listeners and our viewers change to something like, what are you being a fit, healthy, and energetic person, and you live through those values, then you're never going to have to go on another diet ever again. And not only that, I guarantee you will find it so much easier, because you're drawing on all the brain's non-conscious resources to seek out how to be healthy and energetic and fit, as opposed to a consciously chosen goal that you then have to get all the other parts of the brain on board with what you've consciously decided to do. Whereas if you just live through your values of being fit and healthy and energetic, then it doesn't matter. You're always going to be moving in that direction. And also, you're not going to hate on yourself for the chocolate bar that you have here and the ice cream or beer that you have there.
Or the 1 like you got.
Or the 1 like that you got.
From your mum.
Yeah. Thanks, Mum. She's always there for support.
Exactly. Cool, mate. Hey, I'd like to touch on some other things before we start to wrap it up. I'm wary of your time and your clients and stuff like that. And we've kind of touched on this, I suppose, in a little bit, but I'm really interested to know for you personally, what's some of the world's, and I know this is a big question, but what's some of the world's bigger problems / issues that we're dealing with at the moment?
Ooh. Some of the world's, look, I'm going to say some of the world's biggest problems that I really see and always keep in the back of my mind are the things that have never really, they're getting better, but they've never really disappeared. Poverty, hunger, you know, I think one of the things about growing up in Australia, living in the UK, living in and experiencing a lot of the Western world is that how we see the world is so different to how people outside of developed countries see the world. And I'm always very mindful of the fact that, you know what, in the grand scheme of things, getting a fancy new car relative to someone else struggling to get clean water and being able to eat for the week, it's just, for me, it really puts things into perspective. And I think in the Western world, you know, in the States and in Australia and in the UK and even through parts of Europe, I think we are very much focused on things that in the grand scheme of things, don't really matter. You know, we're so focused on what's the flavor of the month, you know, to look at the Trump thing as an example. I mean, like, I'm not going to get into my opinions on that, but people are so, I think what I want to really draw our attention to is people are so fixated on those sorts of things when there's people that are starving and dying of disease in mass numbers on a daily and weekly basis. It's like, surely we can put our energy into things that are going to bring the world together and heal it in ways that we've never been able to do in the past. So I think for me, the world's biggest problems, not just the Western world's biggest problems, the world's biggest problems, I'm going to say are, we're actually pretty selfish.
Yeah, well said. Can we just bottle what you just said and sell it out?
Yeah, I know there's probably a lot in there.
Bottle it up. Well, really well said though, mate. And, you know, I've a couple of times put up talking social media again, or just having conversations with people around stuff like that. And a lot of the time the response is, yeah, but my problems are still relative to me and therefore they're still big in my world, which I'm all okay with. That's not an issue at all. That's fine. But in reality, we, you know, especially living in Australia, there's not too much we need to worry about.
No, not at all. I think I'm also going to add to that, actually. I'm going to say, I think one of the things that can help, you know, we're getting into, try and solve all the world's problems. I think one of the things that would really make a significant difference, because the people that have it so bad don't have the opportunities to do much about it. They are relying on outside support and help. And so I think as far as I'm concerned, and as far as our society that has the ability to help others that don't have it as good, I think we have a responsibility to do something about it. And I think I think one of the key skills that's really been lost, that I've seen a lot recently, is this, if we ever had it, is critical thinking. This ability to reason and see through, cut through all the bullshit that exists in our society. I see it I don't want to turn this into a rant, but I see this all the time on social media. Like, people just buy into complete and utter garbage that they think is going to contribute to their world falling apart, right? But if we actually look at the reality of the situation, we look at the stats, we look at the trends, and we look at, you know, how many people died from world wars and how many people died from terrorist attacks and things like that, and the trends that have existed over the last 100 years, we've never had it so friggin' good. Tolerance has never been so good. But I think that, and we've never really lived in such a safe world. as we do now. And I think people get caught up so much in the BS that exists in the online world that they believe that everything's falling apart and that we all should be creating bunkers underground because, you know, the world's going to be filled with friggin' zombie nukes next week or something. And I think, like, really, if we stepped back from that for long enough and realized that we've got it so good that maybe we actually have a responsibility to do something about the people that actually really don't have it that good, that they're not well off, that there are little kids in third world countries that are still dying from horrible diseases because they don't have access to clean water. That's the stuff that gets to me. Exactly. Breaks my heart a little bit.
Ever thought of getting into politics, mate? I think you'd be quite good.
Oh my God. I couldn't do it. I really couldn't.
Another chat there, I reckon.
Yeah.
But I want to take this back from a global level back to little old you, and ask what are your biggest goals? And I know it's a bit of a cliche question, but I'm asking it. What are your biggest goals over the next 1, 2, 3 years?
Oh, so, you know, the Neuro Coaching Institute is the brand that I'm really spending a lot of time on lately. And so the direction I'm moving in, we can call them goals, is to get applied neuroscience, to get practical neuroscience into the hands of the people that can do the most amount of good, the coaches, the wellness practitioners, you know, getting the really good applied neuroscience, the practical stuff that's going to make a significant difference in people's lives, into the hands of the right people, the practitioners, the people that can do the most amount of good. That's my thing. And it's probably going to be my thing for, I don't know, the next 10 years. This is a lifetime project at this point.
That's awesome.
And it's going to, I'm sure, take many forms over the next couple of decades. But yeah, it's one of those things that's emerged as the one thing, you know, that I probably thought that at some point, maybe a decade ago, I'd never find. So,
awesome. All right. Well, let me flip that on you then, and go a little bit deep. What's something or a couple of things? What are the biggest things that hold you back?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm actually gonna say the only thing that in the world that we live, this blessed world that we live in, for most of us, you know, excluding all the people that don't have it good, for most of us, I'm going to say it's only ever ourselves. And to that extent, I'm going to say that myself, generally, I'm going to hold myself back in some way, shape or form, and that's okay. And at the same time, there's not any one specific thing that's holding me back. I can say that up until a few years ago, the thing that held me back was I didn't have the thing. I didn't have the thing that pulls me forward like a magnet, that I'm drawn to and that I'm passionate about, and sharing every single day, and being completely cool with the one like, you know, because it doesn't really matter. Because I've always had this energy for something, but it wasn't until I figured out what that thing was. And that was the thing that was holding me back. So I'd say now, any one particular thing? No, not at all. And at the same time, in some little way along the way, you know, we're all going to hold ourselves back. That's the only thing that really only holds us back is ourselves.
Exactly. Did you find that there was a door that opened up, like you just mentioned then? You know, you kind of saw what your the why was. You got to that point where you got this is what I want to be doing. Was there a moment where you went, this, I know I'm on the right track?
It definitely wasn't one of those standing out in the moonlight and the light hitting me on the face and kind of like moments that I know that a lot of I know that there's a lot of gurus out there that like, I had this one particular moment. No. It was an evolution. It was constantly working on it. It was thinking about it from different angles. It was pursuing a course of action until I felt that it wasn't right. And just there's one thing that for anyone out there that's listening and watching this, that if you're looking for that thing, if you're looking for that passion, if you're looking to find that purpose or that reason to get out of bed in the morning, that why, you're not just going to stumble across it. I don't know anyone that's just stumbled across it. If you constantly, if you know that there's something, you're not quite sure what it is, you've got to constantly move, keep moving, keep exploring, be curious about what life has to offer, reflect on your life, and all of these things are going to come together and you'll create something. You don't find it, you create it, you generate it. That's my belief.
I did talking about Facebook the whole way through this, but I did a post once that said, if you're looking for a sign, here's your sign. There is no sign.
Perfect. Yeah. Right.
That's awesome. Mate, you mentioned the Institute. Tell us how people can get involved in that, or if they wanted to chat to you more, how best can they do that?
Yeah. So a couple of places. If you're a coach or a wellness practitioner, you can head to neurocoaching.institute. And we've got all the articles, and there's a free ebook on there and a whole bunch of other stuff.
So tell me that again. Neurocoach.
So neurocoaching.
Neurocoaching.institute.
Institute. Yep.
I'll put that along the bottom of the screen there too.
And if you just want some so I've just started this new video series. It's kind of a side project called Neuro Hacker. If you're just interested in learning about how to use your brain, how to use your neurology and get your brain working for you so that you can live the type of life that you want, you can head to ramondavid.com, RAMON David.com, and I've got a whole bunch of free stuff on there. We don't have any products or anything like that for people wanting to learn about that stuff, but I'm giving a whole bunch of stuff away for free that people can learn how to hack their brain, so to speak.
Nice. Ramon, awesome, mate. I've got pages and pages of notes here, so that's
awesome.
Good. A little bit of overwhelm. But mate, I really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed this chat.
Same. It's been amazing. Thanks very much for having me.
Good on you, mate.
Pleasure.
Talk soon.
Thanks, mate. Talk soon. Bye-bye.